Hello and welcome to UC Today. I'm Senior Editor Tom Wright, and in this session we're going to be talking about the challenges associated with data sovereignty. But to kick us off, I'd like to start by asking the panelists to introduce themselves. Moussa, perhaps we could start with you.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Moussa Zaghdoud. I'm in charge of the cloud business activity for Alcatel Enterprise, which is related to all the digital transformation products and solutions present in more than 80 countries. And we are providing solutions for communication, for connectivity, and obviously also for the cloud.
Yes, hi, Francois Guiraud. I am the VP Business Development and Chief Digital Officer for NXO France. So NXO France is a system integrator and service provider who looks after enterprises business on the French market. And we provide services on communication and collaborations, networks, data centers, and cybersecurity.
And hi, I'm Sylvain Rouri. I'm the Chief Sales Officer at OVHcloud. OVHcloud is a cloud service provider, the European leader, and we are offering cloud services to companies to enable them to embrace the cloud promise from IaaS to PaaS. Hence, we are the root of many digital transformation across the world. We are servicing across the world around 1,600,000 customers out of our 35 data centers now.
So to start with, could you talk through some of the biggest challenges that businesses face when it comes to data sovereignty?
Well, especially with with the pandemic, digital transformation is at the heart of enterprises transformation, and data is at the heart of this digital transformation initiative. So data is now like petrol, or is a petrol of the new of the enterprises. And as a part of that, what is about data sovereignty? Data sovereignty is about to protect and to apply specific rules on the data. So data sovereignty and data protection is at the heart of all the digital transformation of enterprises. On top of that, there are some new regulations that enterprises must comply with. So data sovereignty is now at the heart of the CIO, the CISO, and even sometimes the executive of our customers. So they are required, especially when data is on the cloud. So the customers are asking us, to provide them with the assurance of where the data is stored and how the data is managed, and from an end-to-end point of view. So what the customers are asking us is how this data is stored and managed from our point of view and from all our suppliers' point of view. So what is required is an end-to-end view about the data location and management.
Yeah, thank you, Francois. Let me add one thing. I think, first of all, in my opinion, the biggest risk right now, the biggest challenge is the reputational challenge, meaning, as you said, it's extremely important to understand who is in charge of my data, what is being done with my data, where is it going, is it transiting, am I compliant with the rules and the regulation of my country and the countries of my customers or users. Those things combined can drive reputational risks, because the regulation nowadays is just saying that, for example, across Europe, the Cloud Act and the ability for the US government to require access to data outside of any country is just not compliant with GDPR. And although we saw some political announcement, still, the fact is that right now it's not compatible. So what's the risk of a company dealing with data that their users or customer can just at some point sue or start some buzz around social media about the bad usage of the data? So that's really the biggest risk and the biggest challenge right now, reputational, on the back of some legal requirements that are pretty clear nowadays. So it's extremely important for companies to understand, as you said, end-to-end. And this starts with not only the SaaS provider that I'm using, but also all the food chains that leads to the SaaS, right? And from the infrastructures, the roots of the digital transformation, all the way to how are we working out the data, processing the data, extracting the data, using the data, exposing the data. And just last bit of information, I think it's extremely important as well to understand that there were many discussions around encryption, for example. And encryption is just a lock on your bike. It doesn't prevent bike from being stolen. So that, I think, is also important to keep in mind.
So I concur completely to your two words here. I think that as a communication solution provider and vendor, it's our duty. We must provide solutions that are ensuring that security and sovereignty level. Why? Just because communication means that you exchange data, of course, obviously. And in our business, we are talking about enterprises and companies that are exchanging that data while they are communicating. And for the majority of times, this data is critical because they are talking about their businesses, they're talking about products, and they're exchanging a lot of information. So on our side, the challenge has been, first of all, to make sure that all the solutions that we are providing, which means the technical aspect of it, we have to use the best in class, the standards of the encryption and all the methodologies to make sure that we are reaching that level of security and of course, obviously, as a consequence, confidentiality. That's the first challenge, but this is what we are doing since years now. And the second challenge is that while we're talking about this sovereignty, we are talking about data that sometimes is kept in the company in the company premises. Sometimes it is going to the cloud. Sometimes it's in the middle because, of course, people are exchanging. And our challenge as a solution vendor is to make sure that we are taking into account all the contexts of the customers, whether they are purely working on premise or, of course, where they are on a full mobility, to make sure that all this information are well managed in terms of sovereignty, so stored in the right environment, and we will come back to it later on, but also encrypted, secured from a technical standpoint. And at the end of the day, we are providing user experience. So we do have to make sure that at the end, while we're taking care about this sovereignty, we have to make it easy for the users.
And are there any specific industry verticals where data sovereignty is a particularly important issue?
Well, I think there are, to my understanding, there are a lot of verticals that are extremely sensitive to data sovereignty. But if we have to pick and put a kind of hierarchy, in my opinion, we start with anything related to the public sector. I think, as citizens, as parents, so for the education, you need to pay attention to the way the data is being managed, and it's a matter of sovereignty, which is a buzzword that has been very often used recently. But when it comes to public sectors, data processings about citizens, you owe citizens at least the sovereignty and the respect of the law that you have voted for at the European level, at least, and then obviously at the national level. So public sector, in my opinion, is a very sensitive vertical to this data sovereignty topic. But you have other very sensitive data. I mentioned educations, and you know that education can go way beyond just the border of public sectors. Similarly, healthcare, and out of a pandemic, or soon to be out of, I hope so. There are a lot of questions about the way we are using the data, especially the healthcare data, and how we can trade the healthcare data at what price. It's extremely important also to have the right governance here. And then I would say, and especially thinking about companies that are in the B2B activities, I think you want to treat your employees exactly as citizens should be treated. So HR software, for example, HR data is also extremely important, because it's not because you're a worker that you're not a citizen. So you are eligible to the same rights. And finally, consumer data, especially the one that is being used for marketing, for PR, or for ad purpose. Here as well, we need to be extremely careful with the way this data is being exposed. Not to mention, the data that is extremely regulated already. If you think about financial data, for example, it's also extremely regulated. You have some certifications also that are regulating the healthcare, as I already mentioned. But you have to pay attention to one thing. All the existing certifications that are around, they are mandatory, but they do not guarantee the data sovereignty. Very few certifications are already out there which are to guarantee the data sovereignty. France is leading by example with the OVHcloud certification. Soon, I hope European Union will adopt similar certifications, but that's pretty much it. The other one are not really fully sovereign as it should be with regards especially to the obligation of the GDPR in Europe.
So I would like to add that indeed, it's, as you said, Sylvain, it's very country dependent actually. Each country has right now its own regulation, so we're tending to converge there, especially in Europe, and I hope so, because otherwise we will go through different and very complicated certifications, but we need them. And as a solution vendor, we see that indeed, in terms of the communication needs, we see those verticalization happening: healthcare, education, government, transportation, and so on. And obviously, the sovereignty is more critical for governmental organizations, as you said, for education, which is part of it, and also healthcare. And for that, we have some standards that we have to go through, like HIPAA in the US for healthcare, AGS in France as well. You have also the same kind of certification in the education. As you said, OVHcloud for governmental organization in France. All those certifications are important or mandatory, but they're not guaranteeing anything in terms of security, but we have to have them. And again, as service providers, as vendors, we need to go through them and make sure that at the end, we are looking at standard certification, because this is where we can create real value and ensure our customers of the reliability of our solutions.
On top of that, I would say that for the French market, but I think the same on each of the different markets, all the customers, all the sizes, all the sectors, they have to look after data sovereignty and data protection. They are obliged to do it with GDPR, especially in Europe and in France. But I think our value in terms of system integrators and service providers is to bring them the advices in order for them to be compliant with this regulation and to understand how their data is protected. Obviously, you have all the certification and habilitation, and as it was already said, we must comply with these certifications. And as a system integrator and service provider, we are constantly looking to get their certification and to get them as soon as possible. On top of that, for the largest accounts and largest enterprises, as I said, it's on the CIO and CISO agenda to manage this data sovereignty and data protection. So for this kind of customers, they are looking after POCs, a proof of concept, and detailed analysis about our contract and the contract that we have with our own suppliers. And because I really want to understand the end-to-end view about how data is managed, and transport. So I think it's on all the different sectors, and with specificity, as we said, on the health sector in France, we have a few hospitals which are our customers and are very, very strict about how their data is handled, as well as the government sector, but basically it's for all the customers.
And with all that in mind, could you talk through how the relationship between the three companies is able to deliver an end-to-end solution for companies around data sovereignty?
As you said, Tom, extremely important, end-to-end. I think what we are trying to demonstrate here is that actually we need to build up right from the IaaS versions all the way to the service, meaning that most of the time technical solutions are made of something that is supposedly transparent for users. It's easy to use, simple to activate, right? But what we're seeing here is that if you really aim for data sovereignty, for the sovereignty of your service, you need to understand the various layers that are part of it. And I think the three of us sitting here and explaining things, that each of us is in charge of one of the layers, which in the end is automatically orchestrated for the customer. But we owe this level of transparency for the people to truly trust the solutions that they want to go for. And I think we are picturing this will of IT provider to be fully transparent and to orchestrate each and everyone's solutions for the best of the customer usage in respect of the data sovereignty.
No, I think I'm sitting in the middle of you guys because exactly on purpose. We are a solution provider, and for that, we are building a solution for the customers, right? We are technically providing what needs to be provided, and for that, we also need a strong infrastructure where we deploy our solutions. Speaking about the cloud here mainly, and we are relying on OVHcloud for that because it's not our job to do that. We are concentrating mainly on providing the solutions, and we are relying on OVHcloud for that because, again, this is a trusted relationship we have here. It's also sharing values. That's important. And when we speak about sovereignty, I think there is a bit of value here because what we want to do at the end of the day is we are protecting the data of the customer so that the customer has his data and he owns it, and we are not using that for any other purpose. And of course, obviously, we need that solution to be on the market. And for that, we need business partners like Nixo to be on the field and really to distribute and to also to advise. It's not only distributing, you do the action of deploying the solution to the customers. This is where we need the other part of the relation with our business partners. This is here Nixo with us.
I think one important thing for me is with Alcatel Lucent Enterprise and OVHcloud, we share the same vision and the same approach on data sovereignty. So we discussed that, already between us, but it's really, the foundation about our partnership. We have the same vision, and we have the same vision for our customers. So at Nixo, what we want to be is we want to be the trusted advisor for our customers in terms of data sovereignty. So when we launch a new service, we want to be sure that all these data elements are taken into account and are managed, properly. So with our services, we know exactly where the data is stored, how the data is managed, and for example, for us in France, we have, all our operations are in France, and we manage all the data in France. So we know exactly what the data is managed, is stored for us, and with our partners for our customers.
I've just got a couple more questions for you. To start with, could you talk through how a more general UCaaS solution can fit into this wider market?
Yes, as part of our strategy, unified communication as a service is a key element of our communication and collaboration value proposition to the market. So what we have done is we have launched Rainbow Calling, which is a Rainbow software and solution linked to our SIP trunking capabilities in France, as we are a telecommunications operator, and we provide this full solution to our customer. The customer has full unified communication and collaboration as a service, including the traffic, with all the data sovereignty elements included.
And my final question, how do you expect data sovereignty strategies to develop over the coming months and years?
I think from my point of view, and especially with the current circumstances, with the war in Ukraine, we are just at the beginning of data sovereignty and how data is going to be managed and above all protected. So within Nixo, and it's also a question about cyber security, because as I said, now all the CISO, are looking deeply after data sovereignty. So within Nixo, what we do about that? Obviously, as I said, we are working on certifications, especially on the French ANSSI, ANSSI body, and also following the rules about NISA in Europe. But also, we have developed all our services, are developed with this data sovereignty aspect. And on top of that, we are also developing new cyber security solutions for our customers. So to give you an example, we are launching, a new SOC as a service solution to detect and resolve a security incident on the customer network. it's also linked on data sovereignty. So I think all the developments are on cybersecurity developments, and to include as early as possible the data sovereignty in our new services. And on top of that, we have as many companies, but we have appointed a DPO, and this DPO, is also working closely with some of our biggest customers to advise them on how they should protect their own data and what we can bring to them to protect their own data.
So obviously, the trend will not change. It will even accelerate. So we will need more and more sovereignty, because we all think as users in a daily basis that our data is ours, and we don't want to see it used for something else. That's why we think in the enterprise world it is accelerating, and this is a market demand, by the way. All our customers are now asking about this sovereignty and where the data is stored. So we need to make sure that this is still the case and will continue to be the case. What we are doing as a company to tackle that is clearly it's not just a posture to say that we are doing sovereignty. We are putting in place all the processes. We are putting in place all the skills, all the operations, all the support capabilities to make sure that we are really tackling that. Because as we said before, it's not only a technical solution that we give to the customers, it's a full operation process. And for that, we need to have the right skills. So I think that in the coming months, it will be about making sure that we train people, we are hiring the right skills, and we are going through the right process to make sure that this will be sustainable.
I would agree with my colleagues here. This is not something that is... this is something that is here to stay, and it's going to accelerate. You're right, Moussa. I think big expectations around ENISA, Europe, to formally decide upon a reference certifications for the European countries to back up, again, the GDPR situations that we have with, and I repeat it again, is not compliant with the current Cloud Act situation. So this is here to stay and to last. And I think the tech world in general is starting to come up with a new approach of solutions. Like, still people will vote and decide to go for solutions that are really turnkey and actionable as the one that we are deploying, the three of us. But there will be an increasing requirement to understand the various layers, so there is full trust out of the solutions that they are going to use, because they just can't afford having a kind of decision that it will take that will mistreat the data of users, customers, or employees. These companies cannot afford anymore with the new world. And moreover, as indeed the very sad conflict that is at the door of Europe nowadays, you can see how important it is to be in full control of the technology stack that you want to go for. If you do not understand the various layers, you cannot redeploy, you cannot protect, you cannot scale, you cannot revert. You are basically the prisoner of the solutions that you have chosen. You are not in control of the one you want to go for. And that, I think, is a totally new paradigm that we have to go for.
Okay, I think that's a great place to leave things. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and a share on social media, and we'll see you next time.